Caving is a sport considered to be dangerous, and whilst it can be terrifying for many, in reality it's quite fun, safe and challenging. In this video, I will describe a journey that thousands of others have done before me, that changed me for the better and made me fight my own inner demons on the way. Please don't attempt to do anything that I've done in this video on your own, as I've been caving for many years and knew this journey well already. In the video, I'm going to include clips, and all of these clips will be from the journey itself, but those documented I did many years ago. So I didn't actually document this journey at all when I was on it, but I have done it many times and taken many videos. Welcome back to the channel. This video was actually suggested by my Patreons. I told them this story and they said that I should really make this a video, so if you have other suggestions then you can either comment below, or it's just more of a powerful effect with my patrons. My relationship with my patrons is very good right now and I'm very happy. We met up on Google Meets and it was very, very exciting to actually meet some of you guys that have been supporting me. So if you'd like to meet up with me on Google Meets, there is always that option for you, but I do tend to reply to comments below as well. On with the show. Also, yeah, this is funded by my Patreons, so thank you very much. All right, so we set our scene in the summer of 2021. Yes, that's it. Time is flying by me since the pandemic, but it's 2021 and it's summer and I'm feeling good, and I decide to do something that I knew would raise my confidence up to a new level. But I was very scared of it indeed, because any choice we have that improves ourselves always comes with a risk. And this risk was greater than any other risk I'd probably taken in my whole life. And that's saying something. There's a common rule in caving. And the common rule is to not take any more cavers than roughly 5 cavers on a trip, and any less cavers than 3, with the idea that if there were too many people, the trip would take too long and some people would wait in the cold for too long. Maybe they might get hypothermic, and that's a problem, and it's a slow trip. With too fewer people, if say there are 2 people on a trip, one person, if they get hurt, the other one will have to run out and get help, hence leaving that person alone in the cold and scared for their life. That's not a very nice situation. So maybe it's better to have 3 people. This is a common rule that I'm going to instigate here in this video. I'm going to start by saying, do not deviate from this rule. 3 people or more is commonly and usually what is suggested for any one trip, and this will help with not only your own confidence but with the other people's as well, and it's just safer in every regard, and I don't even have to explain really why. It's just kind of obvious. However, and this is a big however, some cavers, if they are very experienced, have described to me personally how amazing it is to go caving on your own. And again, I want to stress that you should not go caving on your own, but I did. Going caving on your own, I'd always been told, was an incredible, euphoric and slightly psychedelic experience that I wanted to try out for myself to see what it was like. And if you're going to go caving on your own, the top rule is choose somewhere that is ultimately the safest that it can be, aka areas that have been travelled by you before, that you know the routes very easily, and you think that you could probably do it in the dark if it was if you really had to. I say this because, yes, there is a chance that both your light and your backup light can fail. So do you think you could get back out the cave in the dark given enough time? Some routes, maybe so, and I've heard it been done before. Anyway, I'd never really been caving alone. There have been moments where I've strayed from the group and they've said, you know, go wait here, and I've waited there in the dark alone, and it's been very interesting. So I wanted to take that a bit further, and it was time for me to go caving alone. Woo! Scary. So I picked a cave and a route that I would be able to take quite easily. And at the time I thought, well, that's a really easy route. But it also was a route that was quite challenging for me as well. So whilst I say it was easy, quote unquote, it was enough of a challenge where, yes, I'd done it about 5 times in the past, but also there were some parts of this route that were going to be very, very tricky for me to do, and that I'd normally done them with other people, and the other people would always give me a morale boost and help with the certain climbs and the certain squeezes. And I was very intrigued as if I could do this challenge alone or not. So I packed up my pride and I went in. The first part of this route was very easy, and it was a half an hour crawl. I was meant to find a kind of an exit to the right hand side, which I knew very well, but I also knew very well that it was hard to find and easily missed, which I actually did on the first time. I got lost through a crawl, and I had been crawling on my belly for half an hour already. And instead of there came an odd turning where I could either go forward or I could go right. Now, I've actually filmed this part already on this channel because I went there with Leo as well. So I actually did an hour of belly crawling in very tight spaces, and I came to a chamber which I didn't recognize before. And then as soon as I got there, I realized, number one, I'd been crawling for too long, and number two, I didn't recognize the space at all, and I'd never been there before. And yes, I did go the wrong way. So I went back and, well, I slowly went back under much aggravation, and then I finally found the crevice that I was meant to take that turning on, which I'd missed first and foremost. After taking this turning, there were a few climbs. Now, these climbs were quite short, but they were quite slippery. So you had pure calcite that you were climbing on, what we call flowstones. So it can be quite slippery, and I was holding on to each wall to hold my body weight between the walls. So it made it easier to climb up. But I was still very scared, because just because you can climb up something does not mean that you will find it easy to climb back down it. You'd think there would be that guarantee, but there is no such guarantee in caving whatsoever. And I know this on very bad experience. That's another story time. So I get up this climb and I realize something. Like, okay, am I going to get down? So I climb down the climb. I'm like, oh, that was easy. That was easier than getting up the climb. It's just like a slide. I slid down it, and it's like 1.5 meters. I'm fine. So I go back up it. But I realized something in doing that. I realized that caving alone was very different. Caving alone was much more intense, and the reason was because, yes, I left a safety call out. So if I didn't get out the cave by 4 o'clock that day, then cave rescue would be called out on behalf of my name, and they would come to help rescue me if anything went wrong. However, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and if something were to go wrong, I would have 5 whole hours until somebody would know that something was wrong with me. And in those 5 hours, anything can happen. If I broke a bone and had internal bleeding, I would die on my own. And these kinds of thoughts are running through my head when I'm going up these very simple climbs. And I realized that this is no simple task anymore. Caving alone means something broader within the kind of the impact of your mind, how you use your body, and how you operate under different conditions, let's just say. So whilst my brain wants to operate under the condition of fear, I do try to tell myself that this is part of the journey and that I will be okay as long as I take one breath at a time, place my foot 1 foot at a time in front of each other, and just keep going. So I do these easy climbs that I've done, again, 5 times before, and I know that my morale is slightly lowered, and I've been already crawling for an hour, and I do feel you know, my heart's racing. I'm a bit tired at this point. It's a little bit daunting. And I come to a squeeze. Now, this squeeze is very renowned. And again, I've done it on this channel before with friends, and it is a terrifying squeeze. It's probably one of the most famous squeezes. And it's important that I tell you now for later on in the story that this trip here was actually done again and again by Cave Rescue in, I think it was 1959. Don't quote me on that, but there was a huge rescue in the 50s/60s on this route. So a lot of men would have, mainly men are in cave rescue, that's just a statistic, but a lot of men would have been going through this route to try to help save the person at the very end. So I was going to try to visit said person at the very end. Yes, rip, he is still there. Very sad. Again, I will bypass that because that's not really integral to the story, but it's important that you know that at the same time. So, I get to this squeeze and it's an eye hole shape. Okay, so I want you to think of an eye hole like this, and it's on its side, this eye hole. It's also quite high up, so you need to kind of climb up a little bit, get on your side and go through the eye hole, the biggest bit being in the centre. And I've always had a lot of problems with coming back through this eye hole squeeze. It's not always been a fan favourite of mine. But it's been a challenge that I've wanted to be able to say that I could do on my own. And it was very important, I think, for me to try to attempt this challenge. So after thinking about it for 1 minute, I'm like, okay, am I committed to this or am I not? And again, I was thinking, oh my God, everything I do is so much more important. I have to double think everything because if I get this wrong, Cave Rescue have to come find me, and that's embarrassing, okay, if I'm still basically happy and in the cave. So I didn't want that to happen. Anyway, I felt committed, and in a rush of head, I pushed all of my supplies through the hole, and I was like, yeah, I'm committed now, I'm going in. I made my way into the eye hole, and it was easy enough. I felt good. I felt proud of myself. There's a big drop on the other side. In fact, there are drops both sides of this eye hole. And it's a little bit tricky because gravity is obviously always pushing you down. So when I'm in the eye hole, my hips are pushed down to the lower part, the smaller part of the eye hole. And they most normally get trapped in there, which is something that always makes me panic. On the way in, I battled this and it was good. And I felt good about that. I was very happy, if a little nervous about making my way back through it. So anyway, tired as I am, I press forward and come to this bit where it goes like this. I don't know how else to explain it, but you come on top of this rift. There's a rope that goes all the way down, so you climb down. There's a muddy pool at the bottom. You walk across the muddy pool, and there's a rope that goes back up. And right there was the final chamber where I wanted to reach. That was the end goal. And also, that's where, tragically, the cave rescue didn't manage to save that man who, if you want to know more about that cave rescue, there is a video that I've done on that on Deep Down Under, which I will link somewhere. Just remind me if I don't. Ooh, so I'm so bloody close. I am so close to the end. And I'm thinking that's what I really want to do. I really wanted to say that I got to Moss Chamber. That's the final chamber. Alone. But I know how tired I am. I've got my supplies. I'm trying to keep happiness. And I look at the way down, the route down with the, what are they called? Rope. With the rope. And I start climbing down. But I slip. I don't fall because obviously I'm on the rope, and I catch myself. And I panic a little bit because, again, it's a longer, I would say it's around 4 meters. And that doesn't sound like a lot. It is when you're in person. And it also is when, if you know you're going to break something down there of yourself, then you don't have anyone to help you within the next 4 hours. And I also want to point out that if somebody knows that you've gone missing in a cave and you've gone past that call out time, doesn't mean they're going to rescue you after 4 hours. They've got to round up their troops. It could be 24 hours before they get to you. That's not nice. That's not a nice thought. And after I slip, I think, oh my God, am I really going to do this? Is this really going to happen? Do I have the confidence? And I begin to talk to myself, which I think is quite a normal and natural phenomenon when you're underground, because nobody's there, right? It's you versus you. And so I started to talk to myself and I said, Elise, are you really going to do this? Is this something you really want to do? What is the percentage of you falling and hurting yourself down here? What do you reckon? How do you feel? Like, really check in with yourself. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it one more try. And looking at how exhausted you are after a few hours of this, if this one doesn't work, then I think you should go back. So I was like, okay, I think you're right. Even though my goal is just over there. And so I get back down on the rope and the same thing happens. I slip and I begin to fall, but I catch myself on the rope and I pull myself back up with a lot of strength. And it felt like something in my head was saying, that's like 50% of your strength gone now because you've exhausted you're fatigued, basically. You've exhausted a lot of your supplies, your energy supplies here, and there's something that's not quite right if you press on, because not only it's the same way on the way back, so I'd have to do this all over again. And judging on the past, I've always had someone help me out with this, so I'm going to go back. And I really had to grapple with myself. I had to grapple with myself and say, I have not lost. I am not in the bad for doing this. I'm just like, I'm okay. If I come out of here alive, I've won. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. The fact that I didn't get to where I wanted to be does not mean I failed, because I'm still going to be alive. And also, I show more strength of character by saying no, by putting up a boundary and saying, actually, judging on my performance so far, I am analysing myself to be unfit and improper to carry on this task, and there is no point in wasting my breath or energy on something that I could die from. So goodbye. And I'm like, I cheer myself up with those kind of thoughts. But anyway, it's time to go back. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a bit of chocolate and go back. So I make my way back to the prestigious eye hole. Oh, my mum's just texted me. Oh, that's cute. She said she liked one of my YouTube videos. Oh my God, my mum watches my videos. Oh my God. My mum would hate to watch this video. Don't watch this video, Mum. So I've got to make my way back through the eye hole. And I was always a bit nervous about this. And what I do is I put my supplies through the eye hole first. Big mistake, Elise. Big mistake, by the way. You put your supplies through the eye hole first. What are you doing? Anyway, I put all my supplies through the eye hole first. I'm like, all right, I can do this. Got through there. I can get back out. If you can get in, you can get out. Big rule of caving, or at least I like to think so. So I lift myself up. I climb up into this small space and I go through on my side. And the other side is a drop and my hips get stuck. And I panic. And so I come back out. My breath is unregulated and I do not feel good. But I'm not saying that to myself yet. I'm faking this confidence. I'm saying, no, everything is great. This is fine. Everything's good. And I try again and the same thing happens. And then I think, every time I've done this before, I've had someone to help me, and now I'm alone, completely alone. And it was like the beginning of me starting to admit how terrifying the situation was. But at the same time, it's odd because I knew I was still safe. My heart's beating, I'm breathing, I'm moving around, nothing's broken. I'm just a bit panicky. And I remember some people the first time I did this. In fact, the first time I did this squeeze, I blacked out halfway through. I had a huge panic attack, and I just remember I couldn't hear anything anybody was saying. I was very terrified of this squeeze when I first did it. Very scared indeed. And I just remember all the voices fading, and I couldn't hear anyone, and everything went kind of black. It wasn't good. And I remembered that, and I was like, it's not going to happen this time. And I also remember somebody going underneath. There was like an underhole that somebody could go through. And they were saying, it's quite small, but if you're skinny, you can do it. And I tried the idea of getting through there, and alas, no. My helmet wouldn't even fit through there. I took my helmet off, and I measured it through this small hole underneath, and the helmet wasn't even going to get through. So I was a bit baffled. Maybe I didn't find the right hole. Maybe I should never say that sentence again. Anyway, so I knew that the bottom hole was not going to be an option. Another sentence I will never say again. But the eye hole was still kind of staring at me in a way that I was a bit mortified. And I gave it another shot, but this time I turned my body over and did it the opposite way. And alas, my butt wouldn't get through because rocks don't bend around your butt, it would seem. And the other side looked very daunting as well. So I came back, and that was my fourth attempt. And this time I got really scared. And I think this was really important. Actually, thinking about it now, I feel like I'm about to cry. Ooh, that's really interesting. It's really interesting how it brings back these feelings when you really describe it. But all of a sudden, instead of being this kind of, I do put on a tough front a lot, and one of my exes said the other month, Elise, you're really stubborn. And I was like, no, I'm not. No. And then when this happened, I realized that I was, and that he was right. So that was interesting. God damn it. It's always good to admit that you're wrong. I think it shows a bit of growth, and I was definitely wrong, and I was very stubborn up until that moment. And I was like, everything's good. And then that really, bottling that up made me really crash by that fourth attempt. And I don't think I was crying. I wasn't crying, but I felt my chest just implode on itself because I was so mortified and scared. And I just thought, I looked at the time, and by this time, I think it was 1 p.m, maybe 1:30 or something. And I was thinking, am I really going to wait a couple more hours to call out, a couple more hours after that until they get themselves ready to come find me? And then probably they'll find me in the early hours of next morning or something. And and then I also imagined K Rescue finding me and laughing at me, because I know that they would. I know that they would. They would find me and be like, what the hell are you doing? They'd be like, this is an easy squeeze that everyone has done. Oh, you're such a dick for coming out here alone and thinking that you could do this. What are you doing? And I was like, that is not going to happen. Elise, that is not going to happen. That is mortifyingly embarrassing. And then I also thought about... it's good to mention, actually, just before I carry on, that I talked about this squeeze with a friend after I had this experience, and they said that a fair few people have been rescued because they couldn't get back through the eye hole. And that gave me a lot of good feelings. It gave me like, oh, thank God. So if you're watching this and you have actually been rescued from this point, then in a way, thank you, because your experience helped me feel not bad about myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's made me feel like, oh, thank God, like, I wasn't crazy. It was a very hard squeeze, and I was right in thinking that I should have been mortified. I should have been scared, right? I'm trapped in a cave, essentially. I was trapped in a cave. Whew. And so, being trapped in a cave was... because I wasn't really trapped in a cave, but I also was, because I couldn't get out, but I knew that I had the ability to do it if I really tried hard. And I think the thing that made me actually push through for that final thing, whilst I was thinking about how bad of a situation I was in. By the way, all my supplies are on the other side. So all my chocolate and water was on the other side of this hole, and what drove me insane was how thirsty I felt knowing my water was on the other side and how long I'd have to wait to get it. And that made me so upset, just so blindingly upset. But the thing that really made me push through and think, Elise, you have to do this, was the rescue. So that cave rescue in the 50s/60s actually came to my head, and I thought, dude, how many people were on that rescue? So many people were on that rescue. The large percentage of them were probably men. And the large percentage of those men were probably a lot bigger than me. Not in terms of being fat or anything. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that they had bigger bodies than me, and that was that. And I thought, if they had done that back and forth to rescue someone, you're going to do this, and you're going to do it now. And there was a slight change in my psychology, in my mind, where instead of panicking and I'm the victim and I just like, oh my God, I'm going to just not going to die in here, but I'm just like so lonely and I'm so scared and oh no. I switched, and I was like, this is what I'm living for. This is the only thing I care about for the rest of my life. This squeeze is me. I am this squeeze. There is nothing that will stop me from getting through this hole and saving my own life, whatever that means to me. Right? I knew I was safe. I wasn't going to die, but that squeeze became the only thing in my mind. It was like I was living and breathing for getting through this hole. And I was going to do it. There was no, I want to get through this hole. There was, I will, I must, I have to, and I am getting through this hole. And with that kind of new intention that my brain had switched to, it was very intense. I'm an intense person, so I went through it as if I was going to die doing it, basically. And the drop afterwards didn't scare me at all. And with this new intention, I flung myself into this thing and got myself higher and higher into the hole. I actually found a really small, almost ledge kind of thing, which I put my elbow on. So the tip of my elbow was on the top of this ledge thing, which really hurt. It really hurt. I was about to swear then. That's how painful it was. Really hurt my elbow. And I'm sure I got pains afterwards, tennis elbow or something, but I put my elbow on top of this ledge just so slightly, just by like 2 centimeters got me higher. And I pulled myself through this hole. And I managed to swing my leg all the way through the hole and put my foot on the other side. And it was like a switch going off again. And as soon as I had my foot on the other side of the hole, I knew that I would be able to make my way out and enjoy the rest of my day. And I burst out crying. I'm sorry, thinking about it now. That's really weird how you recount stuff and the emotions come straight back to you. But I was so happy. I was so like, oh my God. I had made myself get through a task that I found mortifyingly scary, and I was alone. And then I made I made my way out slowly but surely. And that really is where the story ends. Although if you did want to know, I did get back onto the surface and the sun never felt so good. That was a bit long, but thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video where hopefully I am less emotional. Ha ha ha! Woohoo! Bye. Over the course of my caving career, there's been one light that I've trusted the most, and that's been the trusty Fenix light. These head torches have gotten me out of some tricky situations, and I'm very grateful to have them with me. They've lasted a long time. This has actually lasted for about 5 years now, and I'm very proud of them both. I'm also proud to say that I'm actually a Fenix Ambassador, and if you use the code EFB10 at checkout, then you can actually get 10% off of your next Fenix order. So why not give that a try? Thank you for watching.